President Donald Trump slams what he calls a radical left agenda to defund police departments. Congress is looking to reform policing in the wake of George Floyd's death. At the same time, the White House press secretary answered our question about protests being allowed, but not large church gatherings. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports now. Owen?
Tracy, here at the White House, I asked Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany if President Trump thinks it's a double standard if all those protesters can be out there exercising their constitutional right, yet church gatherings are extremely restricted.
He absolutely sees an issue. There have been several cases pointed to where people attending church in their cars were targeted by law enforcement officers. So that's unacceptable. You know, people should be allowed to worship. We have a First Amendment in this country. There's a way to safely do it.
And Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany on White House plans to revamp and rework policing without gutting it.
But this president knows fundamentally that most police officers in this country are good.
As for calls to defund and disband, earlier today, President Donald Trump tweeted, "This radical left agenda is not going to happen. Many, like Minneapolis, want to close their police departments. Crazy."
Chokeholds are strictly prohibited.
In Denver, the police chief there believes the tipping point, as he calls it, has been reached.
We need to truly re-examine, we have to reevaluate and really reimagine what public safety looks like now and what it's going to look like in the future.
In Seattle, demonstrators packed City Hall Tuesday night. A protest against police tactics, even calls for the mayor to resign, and one council member calling for defunding the police.
There's room for improvement, and we know that.
Earlier this week, the president held a law enforcement roundtable at the White House.
We're happy to be at the table, and we're happy to welcome that input and do what we can to be better police in this country, better police for our citizens and our communities.
And near the White House, after weeks of protests, some violent, demanding police reform, an end to racism, and justice for George Floyd, today workers spotted removing concrete barriers.
I stood in line for 3 hours.
Meanwhile, on a separate front in Georgia, a messy primary, hours-long lines, voting machine malfunctions, provisional ballot shortages, and November isn't that far off. Finally, in an op-ed, Joe Biden says he supports police reform but not defunding police. Tracy.